Good morning, everyone. Very nice to see all of you this morning. I'm very excited to present our ebcTALKS in collaboration with our friends from RIDDLE&CODE. We'll be discussing the token economy, how to grow it, how to scale it, very important. And I think also today is a very exciting day after having our new all-time high of Bitcoin yesterday. So welcome to everyone. Please, throughout the sessions, you're very, very welcome to share your questions in the chat box. We will be picking them up, and Sebastian will be taking some of them throughout the session. And even at the end, we have a bit of time to questions. So feel free to, or even discuss between the audience. It's always nice to see how you're discussing different questions. So again, welcome to our ebcTALKS in collaboration with RIDDLE&CODE. I'll now give the word to my friend Sebastian from RIDDLE&CODE. Hello, Sebastian. How are you doing this morning?
Personally, I'm doing fine. Thank you, Victoria. There's a big storm over Germany this morning, so if you hear me screaming, then something might fall off. But I'm in a big hotel. I hope it's stable.
Welcome, Sebastian. Very happy to have you on board. And the stage is yours.
Thank you. So good morning, everybody. I hope we will have an exciting session today. Personally, I'm very happy to have some guests that I really like. We've all been new to this industry a couple of years ago, and then when you start to tour and attend different conferences and digital webinars and sessions, then of course you see a lot of speakers that really impress you. And I'm quite glad that Alex joined us today. Formerly CEO at Börse Stuttgart, and then he moved on last year to Asia. So it's an all-European panel, and I hope that you're still European by heart. And I'm really looking forward to hear your story about how you made it from Stuttgart to 100X Group and BitMEX. Alex.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Good morning. Here in Hong Kong, it's good afternoon, so to say. The wonderful season starts, which means you can actually go outside. It's not too humid anymore. Thank you very much for having me and giving me a chance to share my experience in the past. I think it's in a sense, it's quite a journey. On the other hand, it's a natural next step. When you look at the development of a crypto or token ecosystem, we had this in several other panels. By the way, if you have questions, feel free to ask the questions, and I'll try to answer them on the go. It should be a one monologue story, but nevertheless, I'll keep on talking if I don't get interrupted by questions. Anyway, so it's in a sense a natural next step, because we see in a lot of countries developing, especially from the spot side, so the actual trading of or interaction of tokens or cryptos. Then the next step may be coming then to derivatives, but I come to that a little later. What did actually change when you look at the ecosystem of crypto or tokens or digital asset? Not a lot. When you look at what is required actually to offer a crypto ecosystem to clients globally. Yes, a lot more players are coming to the market, but interoperability between these is not assured on a global basis. So if you want to go really and offer tokens, cryptos, digital assets, now for the sake of simplicity, let's talk about digital assets now, then you will still have to offer all necessary building blocks to be able to provide these digital assets to your client groups, whether this is retail clients or institutional clients. It means you have to have a possibility to issue the token. You have to have the possibility to list the token on whatever market that is, even if that is a peer-to-peer OTC type of transaction. You need to be able to store the digital asset. You need to be able to provide the digital assets to your client groups. You need to provide data around this. And as we are still, as Sebastian rightfully pointed out, a relatively young industry, it's probably not too bad to have something like an explanation or education around this to help actually clients understand the possibilities of tokenomics and whatever is behind this. So this did not really change to a couple of years ago or 2017 when we had the big ICO wave out there. Now, did this tremendously change with DeFi as we see it more rising? Probably yes, probably not. It's probably worthwhile having a separate channel on that one or a separate discussion on that one. But what we see is really that more and more mass market interest comes into the crypto universe. And that means that we as providers who are offering digital asset or crypto assets to them will have to face the fact that although we are a global player and we're offering our service on a global basis, our clients are actually local clients and they will face local jurisdictions. And that means they will have a local footprint on what is required to offer these services to them in the future going forward. As most of the countries adopted a rule where it's not the country where actually the company is sitting in, but the country where actually the user is residing is relevant for the jurisdiction. So you might be an offshore exchange, but from a user experience and from the user jurisdiction view, you might be offering services to a certain country. And so technically, you would have to live by the rules of that country. Now, coming back to that, firstly, what we see is starting from the spot market, a lot of countries already adopted the necessary rules for trading spot instruments. Forget about security tokens for a moment, but let's say in between financial tokens and more utility side, and even when it comes to cryptocurrencies, a lot of jurisdictions are already somewhat defined on how you can trade this. Naturally, the issuance issue is not a big issue over there because it's already solved. But we come to offering these very often defined financial products to retail or institutional investors. And if you do that, then at least as the regulation stands it today, this comes with a requirement to the regulatory framework. Now, as said before in one of the earlier panels, probably already 1 or 2 years ago, regulators regulate function and not technology. So in that sense, technically you can do whatever you want. The regulator will just see what function do you actually fulfill. And if you fulfill the function of offering financial products to retail clients, then in most of the jurisdictions, you need a type of broker-dealer license to be able to provide these services going forward. Now, as said, spot, relatively defined, offering financial products, relatively defined, tax regimes, okay, custody, Germany is very much running ahead of the curve when it comes to crypto custody laws. And a few other countries like Switzerland are doing the same. So there is already a pretty good idea in a lot of countries what that should actually look like and mean. However, the next big step is the global derivatives markets. And that's actually coming to Sebastian's point, what brought me to BitMEX. Actually, derivatives will be the next big thing. And that means if that is already relatively defined, what is coming on the derivatives side? When we look to classical markets, the derivatives markets are by far bigger than spot markets. And the impact they have on the general economy is even bigger than that. So that is very interesting for me. Now, from a perspective of rolling out a global ecosystem, crypto ecosystem, the rules pretty much stay the same. So what you have is you need to see where actually you can offer what services. And regarding regulation and what we see right now, we see countries cracking down on regulation. We see countries waking up on regulation. We see generally a lot of movement into that. And although I have my questions around a ProShares Bitcoin ETF, for example, how you trade this 24/7, regarding mass market adoption, it's definitely a good thing. And we see the volumes flowing into that one, so it's not bad to have it. But it's also something that we have to take it into account as crypto industry, because literally, if access to real crypto assets would be even easier, more stable, more like used by mass market classic means, would there at all be a ProShares crypto ETF? I doubt it. Yeah. So there's still a lot to do, but on the other hand, it's a very good movement that helps us and supports the crypto industry. Coming back to the regulation, that means if you look at where you can actually offer your services, what is a friendly regime you can operate your services in? Now, that might give you a pretty stable home turf and home ground to run your business. And as we announced, or I announced, that we are currently in discussion with a lot of regulators globally for offering our services, you have to sort out where you can actually provide your services. But that's not all, because as I said before, you have to see where are you actually providing your services. And if the rules and regs in that region have a different appeal to where you're actually sitting with a company, that might mean that you even have to adopt the rule set that is there in the hometown of your customers. Now, when you look at how the classical financial industry is doing that, and I know that a lot of people in the crypto development don't see too positively on the classical side, I think there's a lot to learn. And the point is, do you have to have everything regulated in the respective jurisdictions, or can you go with certain regulation? Say, you can have a trading platform regulated in one place, and you have a broker-dealer license and a custody license in several places. Actually, this is how the classical financial industry works. Interesting will become when we talk about DeFi, where definitely you are, from a regulatory standpoint, kind of offshore-ish. And when you see how a lot of these players are working, they make sure that they're really offshore, having no office, having no really residing location, so that they're really deemed fully offshore from an operations perspective. So regarding what is needed is naturally you still have to serve all the necessary means to be able to issue a token, list a token, trade a token, provide the token to your client groups, and safely and securely store that token. Now, as I said before, real interoperability is not there already, which is true. But on the other hand, there are already a lot of players. So it is a chance already that you can reach out to certain players in certain jurisdictions and try to find corporations that way. So you don't have to be global really, truly anymore. You can work with corporations or with partnerships in certain regions. Naturally, then you split the pie. But given that some of the regulatory regimes are still kind of shaky of the direction, it might actually be a good step to move into that one. Now, for us, moving in this direction would mean, firstly, we have to build out a brokerage business or market-making business, spot. We have to have a custody solution outside of the margin accounts that we have today. And being one of the largest crypto or Bitcoin holders globally, we have to have a solution that we can then also provide as third-party service to that one. As I said before, information products with more and more institutional flow coming into the market will be much more important. The question is whether the crypto industry will steer away from data is for free, when more and more classical players are coming to the field and they're used to paying a hell lot of money for the data, whether we keep it, which BitMEX at least is very fond of, because we believe in equal treatment and the possibility of actually retail to be able to compete with institutional players. Now, we have this very strong opinion that B2B follows B2C in the whole crypto movement. And that means for us, being actually more a sophisticated institutional exchange, fully focused on derivatives with a perpetual swap, now opening up much more to the retail side. But because ultimately the whole crypto movement is a mass market, and get your overview and get back the power to the people, in a sense that you are able to hold your assets, invest your assets, store your assets, and be able to really not be dependent on any middleman anymore, that have, at least when you look at the classical financial industry, every so often exploited the possibilities that they should actually provide to us. So from a general perspective, you can say, did it really change a lot? Not necessarily, but the regulatory regimes are, which was to be expected, firstly, more following in the classical direction. And that means if you really want to offer a global product, you have to either work with partnerships, or you have to see where you can really offer your services and what. What is the difference between, the question is, what is the difference between a token and a share from an IPO standpoint? Now, most of the classical regulatory regimes have already, in Germany did so, don't nail me down, a few weeks ago, got rid of the physical securitization a while ago. France, I think, eight years ago. So technically, this is, you can say, this is the same. It's just physical securitization against digital securitization. Naturally, given that the underlying technology is a different one, the process is a different one. Generally, what is presenting or what is representing a share, whether this is a piece of paper or a line of code, from a functional standpoint, doesn't make a big difference. And so my expectation is that a lot of exchange regulators will actually see an ICO or a security token offering exactly the same like an IPO. It's just a different technical means. And having said that, the regulators don't care for technology. They will just say, hey, whether you do an STO, whether you do an IPO, same rule set, you just have to apply to the same rules. There's actually not so much of a difference. In this case, you write a white paper. In that case, you write the prospectus. You have an underlying and undersigning bank. Here, you might have one there. Now, technically, on the crypto side, a token is globally easier available, but that comes together with the regulation. Yeah? Technically, it's easier available than securitized offerings, physical securitized offerings. But as I said before, most of the countries revoked that already. Good question. So can you give an example of asset custody handling differently depending on the country's regulation, traditional finance, eventually digital assets? Now, out of the blue, I cannot tell you the difference between the perceived and coming rule set of crypto custody in, for example, Singapore to the one in Germany. Every regulator has a little bit of different stance. So sorry for that. Out of the blue, I cannot tell you the difference. The regulators are currently finding their way between should they fully apply like banking standards to crypto custody, or does it more go into the clearinghouse direction? Because is actually the crypto closer to a currency, so closer to the banking side, or is it closer to the security? Means you have to have the clearing, so the CSD, the custody piece of it, like the classical clearinghouses. So a lot of regulators are moving in between that. Comes with what we load, quote unquote, up onto the token. So if the token is really Bitcoin or ETH or whatever have you as a cryptocurrency, high likelihood that it shifts in the direction of banking requirements. If we're talking about tokenized securities, so security tokens most likely will have to adopt into the CSD regime or clearinghouse regime. There are a lot of discussions going on there. How much, the discussions around the registry, the discussions about actually who's the responsible for what happens with the token afterwards. That's still with a lot of countries in the making. And, maybe Germany has one of the better sophisticated crypto custody laws like Switzerland has. I mean, when you look up at these two rule sets, you get a pretty good grasp of the general direction that everybody's taking there. So can't be more specific because it's really that in the details. Any further questions? Just shoot it. So what you really have to see is that a lot of countries are adopting a rule set where they say, okay, we don't necessarily have to have your trading infrastructure sitting with us. So you can probably work with a global trading infrastructure license in one regime. Now, when it comes to addressing clients directly in the ground, so offering financial products on the ground, you need a broker-dealer license on the ground. As you store the assets, and most of the regulators want you to store the assets where they are because then they have a grab on it, that means that you probably can run with a global trading license in one jurisdiction, but you will have satellite broker-dealer and custody license in various other jurisdictions, depending on the individual requirements of the regulator. Yes, I would say, is there a difference in risk appetite between token purchasers and subscribers in the IPO? Yes and no. It depends on the timing, I would say. You still have from the mass market movement, you see, and then also from the institutional side, you see crypto funds, you see trade finance companies, you see investment banks, all investing into that space and all going into that space. So is the appetite there to move into that space? Yes, absolutely. Are we there already? No, because for a really comparable, let's say, equal treatment, on the IPO side, you have certain fail-safes. and they're not already there on the token sales side. Remember 2017, a lot of stuff that happened there. Yeah, actually we saw at the Neue Markt. So when everybody's complaining about the ICOs, I'm not complaining about the ICOs. I'm complaining about the rule set around the ICOs. And guess what? Derived out of the Neue Markt was the prime standard, so the DAX. So, and what made the Neue Markt to DAX was the rule set. What we have to do is, out of the ICO Wild West of the 2017, we need to derive a rule set. As soon as we have that rule set and it's in place, I would say that there's an equal treatment of IPO and ICO or STO, whatever you name it. And then you will have a pretty comparable and similar interest in investments. Now, it comes on the individual rule sets of, for example, hedge funds, pension funds, investors, family offices, whether they want to invest, but then it's more their own governance. How's the validation physical items into tokens working? I'm not sure how is the validation of physical items into tokens works. Okay, so if you want to tokenize, for example, a real estate, let's say you have a real estate investment, or you're building up something for 200 million, you tokenize the 200 million, and then how is actually the value derived? Now, it depends on the underlying that you tokenize, but a little bit. And this is why I sometimes tend to say it's just technology. How is actually the value of a stock or share derived when you buy it on an IPO? It's based on the facts and figures that you know about the company. Now, they might be made up. Then, ooh, damned, that was not good. But normally, this is why you have an underwriting bank and auditing companies and this. In that sense, they make sure that what was stated is correct, and there's a prospectus, and that prospectus gives you sort of guarantees that everything is right. And then comes the share price out of the subscription phase, and that gives you the value. Now, when you tokenize an asset, it might be a different process, but actually go to real estate. If a company builds something for 200 million, you have at least the investment cost of that one. If you tokenize something else, there's probably a value attached to that, and you have documentation around this. Now, it becomes very fuzzy if there's not enough documentation around this, if the white paper is not properly set up, or it's not properly described, or you don't have, in a sense, collateralized the asset that you're tokenizing, then it becomes really tricky what the value is. But if you tokenize a physical asset, normally you have the value of the physical asset, and normally there's a chance to evaluate that asset. Now, naturally, digitally, if you don't have something like an underwriting auditor, whatever that is, whether this is a bank or third party or a specialized auditor of crypto assets, who gives a stamp and says, yes, this car, which is going to be tokenized, is really that car, is that old, has that mileage, and yada, 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 then it becomes really, really difficult to find that out. But it is actually exactly working like in the classical financial world. It's not so much of a difference. Now, for cryptocurrencies, outside of the stable ones, it becomes even more difficult when you look at all the range of cryptocurrencies you have out there. But I see Sebastian's dialing in, so probably I'll stop there because I can probably run on forever. Thanks, Stan.
No, it's really great to have you. You don't need anybody else. I think you should take a radio show or a streaming show, just answering questions from everybody. This could be a perfect customer acquisition tool and an educational tool, which is of course in line with your personal strategy for BitMEX and the group as well. So Peter, if you could join us on stage, then we have a panel of, well, we weren't all born in Stuttgart, but we all worked and lived in Stuttgart for some time. So that's the bracket here, basically. And it was quite fascinating to listen to you, Alex. But let me ask you first a very personal question. What was there first? You owned Bitcoin by accident, or how did the space get you hooked a couple of years ago? What was the first encounter?
It's this sad story of having, knowing it and not buying into that. So that was my failed startup idea of building up the first regulated market for trading of in-game items. At that point in time, I was very often in the US, in Silicon Valley. I met a lot of people. Actually, I met Dirk Lüth and Philip Pieper and the guys. And I thought like, oh, how can we prevent in this idea the double spending effect of digital assets? And this is why I got then to know a few, as I said, Tokenizing and others, and they said, yeah, you should use a token for that. And I said, what token? I mean, I've heard about the topic, but not really dived into that. So I drilled really, it was 2013, and really drilled into this, said, oh my God, that's it. Yeah, that's it. We'll change everything. And I wanted to change it for the games industry. So I said, let's tokenize the stuff. But that was for the gaming companies too much. The revamping of the monetization and introducing tokens, that was just too much. And so that failed, but that totally hooked me. And I remember that I was walking from Menlo Park, back from a meeting that I had there. And I said, I should just buy for a few thousand euro. I should just buy Bitcoin. And guess what? I didn't do it. So I bought in much later at a much higher price. I think the price was about 4,000 or something. I think still a good deal, but could have been much better. So sad story, but here I am, fully addicted.
Well, I'm sure you nevertheless made something out of all of this. Peter, what got you hooked?
Yeah, so I also read about it quite early, but also it didn't. So first, it didn't catch my attention. But when I worked at Solaris Bank, or well, we started Solaris Bank, which is like a traditional bank running for a banking license, building up a lot of centralized infrastructure, and then like end of 2016, beginning of 2017, the topic appeared again for me on my radar, and I remember I was in Vietnam like for vacation, and I was reading a lot of books, and finally I read the O'Reilly blockchain book that I had like in my shelf for 1 year already or so, and then kind of when you're on vacation and your mind starts like producing ideas and just like thinking and what if and so on and so forth. So I did my first research, then also started thinking about like, okay, well, we're now starting here a bank. Is this actually the right approach if there is like a completely new infrastructure appearing, which is actually made for kind of tearing down banks, right? So like Bitcoin was made to be like a replacement, so that there's like an alternative payment system. And so I started producing ideas and strategies for Solaris Bank, and at that time then also like brought myself into the topic, and then really fall into that whole of like so more and more information coming in. Your Medium feed is like exploding every day, like, or even a couple of times a day, because there's so many articles produced, and I read them all. At the same time, the prices went up, and this was like kind of a little bit, this is like you're spending time with something, and at the same time you get an incentivation like of spending more time with it. And so this was my way into it. But I always was thinking about like, okay, how can you use it, and how can you make it a case also for a company, also for a centralized company. At Solaris, it was finally resulting into starting a custody business, because what are banks doing in the traditional world? Well, they're keeping money safe for the people, and why shouldn't they do it in the new world as well? So this was the first step. But yeah, so this was at least my first touch point with crypto. Maybe another story. Because so what's behind blockchain? So behind blockchain, there's the idea of decentralization, and decentralization means you're building systems in a different way. And I studied information systems, also like a kind of computer science. So this is interesting from a technical perspective. And I wrote my master thesis in 2007 about social network portability. So that was the topic. So basically, it was about data portability and how to build kind of like an identity service that runs decentralized on your own machines and so on and so forth. So kind of to pull back the data from the silos and kind of find a way to share it through standards like OpenID, OAuth, and so on with others. And well, back at the time, the professor was a little bit skeptical, like, so well, the internet is too slow to make like data really distributed. Now, like 13 years later, and there's like a GDPR with a right for data portability. So this topic is there again, and also with digital identity. So therefore, so kind of like these two streams made me an enthusiast for the whole topic. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah. So you were slightly unhappy decentralized B2B banker, and then Alex called you, right? And you made it to Stuttgart as well. So looking at your two stories, I think we heard a lot about enthusiasm. I also did the same. You know, I was planning Bitcoin 101 webinars in 2012. But then that whole setup collapsed, and I also didn't buy into it back then, which is stupid. But we all stay tuned. So what is motivating you today, a couple of years later? And what was motivating you, Alex, to go from booming Stuttgart to lazy and low-level Asia?
I think, now in hindsight, you're always smarter. Yeah. So in 2013, I should probably have fully jumped onto that one. It took me a while. Now I'm not a young founder or entrepreneur. Yeah. But I wanted to fully get into that. Yeah. And when it comes to really forget about the regulation for a second. Yeah. But when it comes to adoption to digital and digital assets, Asia is a very, very, very hot driving market. Especially when it comes to trading. The drive here to do this, the speed of doing this, the willingness to fully go into that is tremendous. Now, regulation is not as advanced as, for example, Germany and Switzerland. So when it comes to where can you actually do this stuff, a lot was announced in Singapore, but until recently, nothing was granted in Singapore. So Singapore is just really opening up. They said before, but it's not really materializing. A lot of other countries, and actually in Asia, are more cracking down than opening up than, for example, Europe. But when it comes to dynamics, Asia is just the place to be. And derivatives are when you're into, let's say, more financial products, crypto trading, then derivatives are the next big thing. Most of the big crypto exchanges, derivatives crypto exchanges, are actually hailing from Asia or Asia-based, or let's say mostly dominating in Asia. So if you want to go into that space, then Asia is the way to be. It's not easy in COVID times to move to Asia, I can tell you, especially when it comes to family. It's a big leap, but definitely worthwhile when it comes to speed of implementation. And it is also a pretty big talent pool, I have to admit. Yeah, so there's a lot of hungry people here who really want to drive the crypto economy, which is nice. Yeah, so finding good talent here is actually not that hard.
Chairman Mao said, let 100 flowers bloom, let 100 schools of thought contend. And that was, of course, a year before a big crackdown in the Chinese history. So how do you see the regulatory environment being, let's say, maybe less predictable as in Europe? And what does it tell you for your business plans?
As I said, so I think that the most important thing is you have to pick and choose at least a certain set of regulatory frameworks from which you can, quote unquote, safely operate until the more global approach is defined. And that means you have to sort maybe one or two jurisdictions where you can properly operate your business. So you might still have in certain countries issues where customers are restricted when it comes to derivatives, maybe leverage is restricted or something like this. But at least you can operate free and safely. And as now the regulatory regimes are moving on and you can actually do this, it gives you a stable hometown and basis. Now, as I said, Singapore is opening up, Korea is cracking down, Japan is a little bit in the middle. I think that China is mainly pursuing the CBDC direction, which is, at least from my understanding, it's quite understandable. We have to see how regulation really plays out there. It's not clear already what does it really mean. And that is also true for a lot of other jurisdictions that are just either opening up or slowing down. And we see this even with legal tenders. The first countries adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender, which might be a totally different ballgame when it comes to mass market adoption of crypto underlyings. For us, we are, as I said before, we are looking mainly for jurisdictions we're residing. So Singapore, Hong Kong, maybe something in the European area. You will see shortly popping up, and probably in North America, Canada seems to be a very, very good place to operate from. And then we have to see. We have very good discussions with the regulators there because they're very keen actually on regulating derivatives as they see that this will drive volumes tremendously. We've seen this from the ProShares Bitcoin ETF. If you imagine now more 24/7 products on the pure crypto underlying, you'll see tremendous flow comparable to the classical futures world, which is by far bigger than the spot world. Yeah. So for us, it's a pretty strong race for getting regulated.
Okay, Peter, over to you. You announced together with your colleagues, and congrats for all the, let's say, team members and hires that you've already made. You announced Unstoppable Finance this week, basically. So you're heading towards the DeFi horizon. So what are your goals? What are your ambitions, and how do you? What's your perspective on the DeFi opportunity after the first year of, let's say, craziness?
Yeah, so maybe first of all, so why did I perform that step, or why actually are we doing it? And maybe looking at the crypto space of the past 4 or 5 years, kind of like in a retrospective. And so from my point of view, technical developments or also market developments always come in waves. Yeah, kind of there. So there's let's say there, like in crypto, especially in blockchain, like as a means of exchange of value, was like invented. So then there was the first class of services, which was probably cryptocurrencies, and then like trading cryptocurrencies. There have been the early adopters in the market, so especially in the US and in Asia, providing exchanges. Then there's like the second wave of developments, probably that you've also seen from Central Europe. So like Börse Stuttgart, with all the products that we build up, and so kind of like this wave is like really carried like with a lot of power into the market with regulatory approaches by the governments and so on and so forth. So this is like already kind of like this wave is already breaking, but there's now the third wave coming in, and that's about decentralized finance. And so if you look at decentralized finance, what is it actually, and what's the difference to the waves that we've seen before? And actually, is it like a contradictory development or not? So actually, no, it's the next stage, because before, like in wave 1 and wave 2, we've talked about assets. Yeah, so like trading assets, and how can I tokenize something and kind of like build reliable centralized trading infrastructures for that, and build regulation around that. But DeFi, so the third wave, is about services. Yeah, so it's not about providing a certain asset class to somebody. It's about developing a smart contract that implements some legal brick of a financial service, so that, like a trading functionality, so that I can organize a market in a decentralized way, or that I can get a loan, or that I can invest money and get an interest rate, and so on and so forth. So like anything that you can find with banks, with brokers, with trading lots, you can find now on decentralized finance being implemented in a decentralized way. And so this comes like with, let's say, really also a fundamental change how things work, because, like the technician in myself says, like a decentralized application and a centralized application needs to be managed in different ways, and developed in different ways. So that's probably one component. But also when it then like on the long run, and probably that's one of the next questions when it comes about the regulatory side, you also need to look at that very specifically. But yeah, so coming back, like, so what's DeFi? Yeah, so it's really providing services and not assets. And so what's now the connection with Unstoppable Finance? So with the company that kind of Max, Ahmed, and me started a few months back. So we want to open this new world of decentralized finance to everyone. So because so if you look at Dune Analytics data, and if you talk to people, so I don't know how many people in the audience already earning interest on the blockchain, not through staking, but whatever yield aggregation and yield farming and so on and so forth. It's like a low amount of people. Yeah, it's if you look at Dune Analytics, it's probably 1 million wallets associated with it. So, well, I probably have 10 wallets being involved in some DeFi activity, and there's probably even people more engaged into it. So, so it's really, so maybe we're talking about 100,000. Maybe even less users at the moment who are taking benefit from using financial services through decentralized finance. And the opportunity is very, very obvious because, so for example, us in Europe, we're seeing negative interest rates for years already. So there's a high inflation after Corona. So will the interest rates go up? Probably not over the next 5 years, because the refinancing of all the debt that has been made through Corona would be very expensive to repay. So it's like a very attractive market right now to earn interest on the blockchain, because you get 4% plus. So that's unbeatable for banks and for the traditional system. But yeah, so these getting access to DeFi is still very difficult. You need to have a non-custodial wallet. You need to be aware that you need to protect your private key on your own. So we're living in a world where most of the people are not using a password safe. Keeping a private key or a key phrase secure is probably something which goes over really the skills of many people out there. And so we want to provide a product that makes this very easy. So create a wallet and make a recovery, and then really have a portal of getting inspiration where I can put my money, where I can let it work, so come really close to the user, make it very easy, and open the market through this. And the first step will be a multi-chain wallet that we're building, because decentralization also means to me that there won't be just one single blockchain in the future. There will be many, and then there will be interoperability between them. So therefore, we're already preparing for being multi-chain. That's the first phase of the company. So building that wallet product. The second phase will be also to build components in the decentralized world. So it's always the spoken word of the bricks, where you can build services out of many different Lego bricks. We're also looking into providing some missing Lego bricks so that also others can use in the protocol.
Okay, perfect. And wearing my company hat, of course, we have to talk about that multi-chain wallet. I heard Alex at us giving a speech 2 years ago, and you said the wallet is basically at the center of everything. And compared to traditional wallets, it's connected. It has to hold all the intelligence. So do you still, think that was a true assessment, and that we are moving towards that direction?
Absolutely. When you look, in a sense, it's don't get me wrong, it's a commodity, but it's the most critical commodity you can have, because actually what your wallet is connected to, you are able to trade or buy or finance or yield or whatever. Yeah. And so if that is providing just limited services, then you as a user can only use the services that are connected to that wallet. So I think that very much the order flow or the drive, who owns the client, which in the classical world very much is the starting point and not so much the end point of the process, is turned around. Having the possibility, especially in the DeFi space, to have a self-custodial wallet, means that I own it really, and I have the full control of it, which comes with risks, as Peter said, but also with possibilities. So if I have a connector that lets me connect my wallet into a huge ecosystem of potential things that I can do with this, what do I need else to do it? Yeah, I need data and I need education. But otherwise, I don't need any middleman anymore. So I'm fully convinced that this is still absolutely true, Sebastian.
Okay, and now one strategic and potentially challenging question. If you build your own custody solution and you are also, of course, further driving internationalization, at the end, if we talk about use of wallets and get connectivity to all these players out there, you basically will need to adapt a multi-wallet strategy or multi-custody strategy and take the marketplace approach. Otherwise, you have to champ your own products and you will lose market shares elsewhere. So how do you see, how can this be solved from the CEO's perspective?
Exactly like you said it. The likelihood that the world adopts to your wallet is what? Zero? Yeah. So what you have to have is you have to have an own solution, because there might be customers coming to you don't have a solution. Which don't have a solution, but there might be other customers who are coming who want to use your ecosystem but not use your wallet. There might be coming some that want to use your brokerage or your trading or your information products or your education or your wallet. So you need to build your ecosystem in a sense with building blocks that you are able to connect to different client groups and different offerings. And this is how you have to build it. Now, you have to have it, because otherwise, if the wallet misses, and okay, there are enough partners already out there, so you can even use the wallet of some partner out there, but you can't start without the wallet. You need a means to safely and securely store the asset. Now, the critical point comes if you don't own it and something happens, the negative impact is definitely not only on the wallet provider, it's also on you. So that brings you to the point. If that is true and it's strategic, then you have to have a strategic alignment with your wallet provider, which very often leads you to the point either you have to build it, you have to buy it, you have to cooperate or partner in that one, because you're stuck in that anyway. Yeah. And you want to make sure that the partner is not walking away with the clients you're building up together. So it brings you in a different angle, but yes, you have to have it, and you have to be able to connect to other venues and other wallets. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Now coming back to some of the audience questions we got in the meantime, and no financial advice given. Peter, you talked about the great market opportunity right now with negative interest rates in the traditional finance sector. Of course, we should say that there's no guarantee that you can earn interest in the crypto space. It's easy to say that in a boom phase. It's a bit like YouTube, where our viewers are watching us today. YouTube hasn't seen an advertising crisis since 2008, or at least not a big one, a slight corona glitch. So markets will be challenged when it's difficult, and that certainly has not really happened to the crypto space. Of course, 2018 was a bit, we could sit down and take time to develop our thinking and our companies back then. But the boom was only paused and not interrupted. But I fully agree, Peter, about the user interface challenge, and that we have to make it easy and accessible for everybody. But we got a question about the difference between centralized and decentralized exchanges. Would you say that it matters in the end what kind of technology is behind it? So will there really be a service and capability difference, or is it only the storytelling, decentralized being more robust, etc.? Where do you see this going?
Well, so I think it's a continuous development, right? So I can only respond, let's say, to the current state of the market, which might be different like in half a year already. So that's as a disclaimer. So I think maybe we should say a little bit about like what actually a DEX is, how this works. So like in principle, and in principle it works in a way that there is a smart contract deployed on the blockchain, and on the one side there's people providing liquidity like for a specific trading pair, let's say USDT and Ether or something, and then there's these funds get like in the pool, which is organized by the smart contract. And if somebody wants to trade on that trading pair, so let's say trading getting F for USDT, then you're kind of putting F in the pool and taking you're putting USDT in the pool and you're taking F out. So like. I always compare it with these, like if you go like to the land side with your family, and there's these people selling their own produced honey, and there's like these boxes, and you kind of like put money in, you take honey out, and that's it. So that's how a decentralized exchange works. The liquidity providers that are behind get incentivized by earning tokens and potentially even trading fees. So that's the whole idea. So what's the good and what's the bad? So let's start with the good. So the good is you can very efficiently make a decentralized market like for almost anything. So you can list your token right away without like paying too much listing fee and so on and so forth. So it's like very flexible. It's open. It's permissionless. Everybody can use it, and even people who never thought about a career in like working at a broker or so, or the market maker, can become kind of a market maker and earn money through this, like as a passive income, because you can provide liquidity and earn money. So let's say that's the pro. What's the con? It always depends kind of like how big is the liquidity pool that's provided. So you also have slippage, kind of like the price can develop like in a negative way for yourself, and also it's not really made for high frequency trading. Yeah, and that's and therefore I'm saying, what's the state of the market right now? So if you want to build like a very simple broker-based or like a service that feels to the user like a request for quote exchange, so like the Coinbase, you want to buy something, you get a quote, you say okay, and then you bought it, or Bison and all these products. That's very easy to implement on something like a decentralized exchange. If it comes to what Alex with BitMEX is doing, or Coinbase Pro and Binance and so on, like where people are heavily trading like milliseconds, nanoseconds. So it's not made for this. Is it getting there? Well, so like the technology development never stops. So like around FTX, there has been, for example, the development of Solana, and they kind of provide like an on-chain order book-based trading functionality, so that could potentially be used by everyone, also to provide like an order book-based trading facility in a decentralized manner. And that's kind of like, so it's under observation, so like how far this goes. But as technology never stops, probably we will get there. Like it's just a question of time when DEX technology can come closer to really centralized exchange technology.
We maybe should ask the next question to Peter. So maybe that's one for you, Alex. What is still missing in the DeFi space? If you look at the big strategic picture as it unfolds today, is there something where you would say this is still a gap?
Yeah, when Peter mentioned that, I think that DeFi, and this is very basic, for most of the people who are interested in DeFi, it's way too complicated to get in. That's it. It's very, very basic. I mean, you see a lot of people there who want to do more, get more exposure in that direction, like we've seen it in the early phases of Bitcoin and ETH and all the others. Yeah, at the beginning it was way too complicated. Right now it's very easy, at least to get to the basic spot underlyings. It's very easy. You have these convenient apps, you can trade it, KYC is easy, transferring money is instantaneous. You don't have to wait like weeks and months until you have the stuff set up. It's very easy. DeFi is not easy. It's just not easy. So the approach that Peter's taking is the absolute right one. How can we make this mass market adoptable? Now, high frequency traded security tokens or whatever, trading products are probably not the first use case. There might be at some point in time. So when you ask me as a normal user, I'd say make it user friendly. If you ask me as running one of the derivatives exchanges, wait a little bit until we come to the trading part.
Okay, perfect. Then there was a question about the Philippines. That's maybe also one for you, Alex, from a German perspective. After the Wirecard scandal, we know that the Philippines are maybe a good market to hide things. Yeah? What's your view, about these emerging markets?
Actually, so if the keyword is Philippines, so I can also say something. So we're not crossing the questions. So good because like it's always like an example that I also gave in our pitches with the investors back in the day. So therefore I have to take that one because and this also relates to what I said, kind of like how is DeFi constructed? How does it work? And this then also kind of translates into how like we potentially also need to treat it in the future when regulation is kicking in. Because so what's one of the very, very big success factors for DeFi? It's radically transparent. Yeah, and if you're talking about Philippines, what was the problem with the Philippines and with the Wirecard scandal? So kind of there was some money that should be somewhere, but nobody knows where it is. So which like with a first look at it, it seems like okay. Well, they documented it very poorly because usually you like follow the money. So there's like always kind of ways to find like so where it is, and kind of on the blockchain. It would never happen that you're looking for your money because you can just like instantly look at your wallet address and kind of like follow the whole graph, depending on what blockchain you use, where the money went. So it's like milliseconds and not even like a KPMG or whatever auditor needs to look after it. This can be done by a machine. And kind of there could be like a green light or a red light. So if money is there and not, and this is also one of the advantages from my point of view for DeFi as a whole, because so when it comes to regulating it and treating it, it's really kind of 100% STP, completely automized. It's just machines doing stuff, and Alex also knows about that, and me also from Solaris Bank and Börse Stuttgart Digital Exchange, because like regulation and like practically organizing regulation means to put up a lot of rules for your organization, and kind of so there's like a 4i principle, there's like a control that the 4i principle works, and then somebody's controlling the whole stuff and audit trails and so on and so forth. And it's all about kind of humans always tend to, I don't know, to do fraud, to, I don't know, incentivize to give a favor to the neighbor or whatever. And this needs to be controlled. And this is kind of probably 60% of the practice of organizing a regulated company, just like making sure that this is not possible and that this becomes transparent. And this is like a game that you will never win because humans always try to find kind of like the loophole in something. And now, so I was even saying that at Solaris Bank. So I was always talking about compliance as code and kind of like automizing as much as possible, because the idea behind it is that a computer program, which is written in a certain way, if greater than 0, do this, if smaller than 0, do that. It's like the computer always does it the same way. Yeah, so the computer doesn't say, oh, that's my friend, we've been produced in the same factory in Taiwan, and so I will do it a favor and give some tokens for free. It's not going to happen. And also source code can be audited. It's like a written rule book. Yeah, it's like a written compliance document just in source code, and somebody can look at it. And therefore, so if people now start producing financial services in forms of a smart contract that's publicly auditable on a blockchain. And there will be like networks of auditing companies really making sure that the service which is offered is really provided through the underlying source code. So this can lead us like to also completely new world of regulation. And coming back to the Philippines, so probably also loopholes like that in the future will like completely disappear because organizations will be radically smaller, the loopholes will disappear, and protecting markets, protecting the consumer will be easier than ever before.
But Peter, this is ideal point to one or two of the questions there, because what is needed? The regulators need to understand these capabilities. The moment they understand it, they will fully sway into it because they will see that it gets them much more benefits by running on that one. Now, that leaves us the problem that we had before, like, can a DeFi platform suit especially financial products? Probably not now. But the question is, does everything have to run on that platform, or do they have to certain status be on that platform? Like, I was at a conference 2017, 18, and somebody was very proudly saying that we can now do trade confirmations. Okay, classical financial world can do trade confirmations since 1980 something. So what's the big thing? Putting trade confirmations on that one. So really focusing on what is really needed can actually be really a breakthrough moment there, and actually work in the favor of adoption from the regulatory framework. So I see that there's a huge chance actually for the adoption. I fully agree to that. Yeah, and as I said, not everything has to be running on that infrastructure. And nobody wants to hear it, but on the classical world, what saved Germany's financial, so to say, ass when the Lehman crisis was? Algo trading. Because as you said, Peter, the algos, they don't care. There's no psychology in the algo. They weren't afraid because the company figures were good. What was happening on the market was not reflected by the company figures, so the algo didn't sell. So this is why in Germany, we were not that big hit like other countries where it's not so much automated. So I'm fully with you on that one.
Now we are basically facing the last 3-4 minutes, so it will be difficult to link all the questions. Let's maybe link the Philippines. And there was a question about the luxury goods industry. So if they could team up with exchanges to offer all kinds of NFTs. So will the collection of Imelda Marcos shoes as an NFT be something that is terribly exciting for you, Alex, at BitMEX to sell them off? Or will you focus on Prada, Louis Vuitton, and the others?
No, I think that it is interesting. Ultimately, exchanges are marketplaces. And we should not, like a lot of classical exchanges, they're inside out. They're selling what they think is good. They're not selling what necessarily the customers want. And we are marketplaces. We should sell and trade and make available what the customers want. And if the customers want NFTs and they want to have some sports shoes, luxury cars, whatsoever, then I think exchanges should open up, providing the infrastructure that users and customers can trade, store, exchange, whatever they like to store. Now, when it comes to physical and digital, it gets a little bit difficult, but I'm very much convinced that we should offer that.
Remember when we talked about helping that football club to tokenize like 2-3 years ago? Do you think they will bite their ass in the meantime that they didn't do it?
I have. Let's put it that way. I have a lot of very interesting discussions, as you can imagine, with our sponsorship as well as other stuff that's up in the air. So I think a lot of clubs realize the potential of that now, although we started early on, like 17, 16, 18 around the discussion. It took them a while, but they are in full swing right now.
Let's have one global and strategic question at the end before the final personal words. So there was a question about stablecoins, and we all know that this market is 99% owned by the dollar. And given the MiCA regulation and the other regulation or regulatory drafts in Europe, we will not see a European or a euro-based stablecoin because of the way they kind of prohibit to earn interest on that one. So a euro stablecoin would right now, by definition, be losing money from day one. So is this a strategic problem for Europe? What's your view on that, Alex? And what's the situation in Asia? Will we see yen-based stablecoins or won-based stablecoins or renminbi stablecoins outside of China?
I think it's a tremendous failure to not provide this. I think it is vital for the European economy to have it. And it's even existential in a sense, because if we're not providing a euro-based CBDC, we will have to adopt for whatever comes, which makes our dependence on what we take over even stronger and more dependent and more critical, as other countries are adopting that. And as I said before, it would not surprise me at all if China would come up with a CBDC that is then a foundation for the trade in the newly formed trade economy that they have. And if you want to do business together with them and you don't have an own CBDC that you can actually use in that ecosystem, you will have to fully adopt into theirs. And take Peter's words, that is linked to your digital ID. This is linked to digital ownership. And it's either we have something for the European Union or we will move on to something from somebody else. Not necessarily saying this is all bad. matter of fact. And if we miss that, that's it. There's no turning back. There's no second chance.
That's basically
I would even add to this that it's actually it would be at the moment a strategic opportunity to say like, okay, let's quickly talk to the Circle people and let's do like a EuroC and just find like a solution on the ECB level with the negative interest rate and just do it. So like back in the days when the Circle dollar was invented, so I was still at Solaris Bank. I was talking to Circle like, hey, how can we bring this with using your technology to Europe? And Euro hasn't been like a strategic topic for them at that point of time, so this project did not happen. But there were like several conversations about it, and it's like it's very sad because it could be like a very easygoing thing, kind of like really sit on top of this technology stack. It works. It's used in digital ecosystems, and like any politician is talking about digital ecosystems these days. So it would be like a very easygoing one just to become part of a digital ecosystem, and they can still come up with an own CBDC and make something different. But like as an intermediate solution, like for the 4 years in between until we have a CBDC, probably not in Europe, this could be like a very feasible solution, because 4 years in crypto means like a development of so really like inventing the wheel to having the first car.
I'm pretty sure Jeremy has some European ancestors, so we will have to dig into that and see if we can open up Circle Europe. So basically, Alex, you've built a perfect bridge to the next panel, which will talk about the European infrastructure. But before that, a personal closing question. You said, Alex, that the impact of the derivatives market on the real economy will be, let's say, bigger than crypto and spot markets. So I think we are all motivated by working to achieve some impact and to bring our societies forward. So what is your personal goal? What would you like to achieve outside of a nice sum of coins on your wallets?
Now, firstly, I think the impact on real economy is not what I meant. I meant that the derivatives markets always is a multitude of the underlying spot market. My biggest goal is mass market adoption of digital assets and tokenization, and for us to be able to exploit the possibilities, breaking up monopolies, democratizing financial services globally. That's my drive, that's my goal, that's what I'm convinced about. And whatever fuels mass market adoption, that one, we'll be working on it from a BitMEX perspective and me personally.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it's so like I said in the previous words, it's very fascinating to see now this new world of experimentation and decentralized finance. So like a lot of stuff is created. Sometimes maybe it's even useless. Sometimes it's like really genius. So it's really great to be part of that movement and really watch it very closely. From my perspective, so our mission, bringing DeFi to the masses, is like partly in our hands, partly also in others' hands. So on the one hand, like building a great product, I think we're on a good way. And also some of the questions in the chat went into the direction of regulation, what's our position, and so on and so forth. And from our perspective, so there's like a few unsolved problems, so that might appear in the next 2 years. And from our perspective, it's very important to really connect the digital ecosystems together and have like open standards and solutions that really let these ecosystems grow together, because it doesn't make sense to kind of have a wallet for your ID, to have a wallet for your driving license, to have a wallet for your cryptos, to have a wallet for your other cryptos. So the kind of you will live in a world where it's like tons of wallets. It's about like bringing them together. So holding your digital ID, your driving license, and whatever else within one technology stack. And at the moment, we're really trying to do everything that we can. And also, if there's like listeners in the audience kind of like wanting to connect or helping us to open doors, feel free to contact me, because we really want to talk to policymakers and also technology companies offering interesting solutions in digital identity and so on. Because from our perspective, really bringing the ecosystems together, being able to sign transactions with digital identity, so on and so forth, can be like really attractive to really also get DeFi out of the niche, because it will come, or it will get out of the niche once there's really solutions also for these, let's say, more general questions. And we really want to involve ourselves in making it happen.
Thanks a lot to Peter and Alex. Personally, I'm quite happy to hear or get the feeling that the next wave of innovation in our industry is in good hands, both in Singapore, Hong Kong, and in Berlin, and so out of Stuttgart, basically. From a company perspective, it will be great to have some discussions about collaboration in the future. And we all agree that we will see marketplaces popping up, and we need to make sure that interoperability is kicking in, and that we churn out relevant services that go beyond just, not in the negative sense of the word, earning interest rates, because we should earn interest on meaningful stuff, basically. And that leads me to the next speaker. So thank you, Peter, again. And Alex, maybe you take a few minutes and answer the last questions in the chat window. And please, Andrea, if you could switch your camera and the microphone on. Bye, Peter. And then we can...
Hello.
Hi, Andrea. Good to have you.
Thank you. Zoom tells me I cannot switch the video on because I have been disabled.
Yeah, maybe that's something for Victoria and her team to solve. So if not, then we'll have an audio. Ah, there he is. Perfect.
There we go.
Hey, ciao, Andrea.
Ciao.
Come stai? How is Copenhagen today?
Rainy and gray.
Okay.
On the end of October.
So we talked about the global perspective and how the finance sector is evolving. Now let's switch to potentially more boring, but more fundamental, even more fundamental topic. How is Europe, not only as a continent, but as a society, reacting to not the blockchain challenge, but the opportunities that blockchain is providing? And both of us have been part of a journey over the last half year and maybe over the next 2 years that was triggered by the European Commission, because they invited us together with other companies as part of a tender where we submitted our proposal successfully to help with coming up with a new and robust and scalable architecture for the European blockchain services infrastructure, the EBC, which is already in place. So all the EU member states plus Norway plus Switzerland are hosting a node of this European blockchain partnership, and the EBC as the underlying tech infrastructure. And the ambition of the Commission is to basically provide a platform where many public services will be able to run on, but also where the industry can tap into a resource or a technical resource pool to take their services forward. Did I forget something about that European strive for, establishing a multi-purpose backend? Or what was your perception when you first heard about it? And at the Dyn Foundation, you're of course part of many European programs in that sector. So how have you seen this evolving over the last 3-4 years, and where do you think all of these exercises are heading?
Maybe I can tell you a little bit how we got in touch with EBC and how this, what our perception's been since the beginning. So I think that we first heard about EBC in 2019, and we actually made contact with them. We showed what we were doing, and at that point we started gathering background information. So apparently what happened is that the Commission around 2017, 2018, they realized that there was a need for a blockchain that would be governed and run by members, that would be governed by the European Commission and run by member states. So what they quite literally did, they gave some money to someone at the directorate of digital directorate of the commission, and they told them just go out and experiment with some technologies. A couple of years later, after a few tests done with Ethereum and with Fabric, they realized that none of the technologies available off the shelf as of today can offer the level of scalability required by such an infrastructure. As soon as they figured that out, they thought they would start a tender process to develop, redevelop, or further develop the infrastructure they had in place. And that's when we came in. So we heard about this, it's called pre-commercial procuring tender, meaning a tender in several steps. We heard about that first around mid-2020, I think. And then we applied. The deadline was November 2020, if I'm correct. Was it January 2021? Can't remember. It was the end of last year, beginning of this year. And with my utmost surprise, we won the first phase, and now we applied to get into the next phase of the process.
And if we look at that, that tender for EBC, what the European Commission wants to achieve on behalf of all the members is scalability. We talk about use cases such as the digital product passport. We talk about identity wallets, or that's one of the services that EBC is already providing. So for you at the Dyn Foundation, and maybe you talk a little bit about what you've been doing over the past years. Why is this so important? And how can we best collaborate? RIDDLE&CODE and Dyn and InfoChat from Italia, we applied as a group, but of course, in the end, it will not really matter who builds such an infrastructure. What will matter is the functionality. Of course, we're happy to do that and to contribute. But let's talk about the goals that European is setting for itself.
I think that that is very well specified in the tender. There are 5 technological must-have requirements, where the first and foremost is scalability. So once again, what the Commission tried to do was try to set up some blockchain off the shelf and see if it would work as a Europe-wide blockchain. They tried Ethereum and Fabric, and they figured out pretty quickly they could scale. So the most important thing is scalability. So they want to be able to offer the member states, the companies, institutions, schools, whoever wants to notarize stuff on blockchain within the 27 member states of Europe, plus Switzerland, plus maybe Norway and Iceland, you don't know. So it's going to be a lot of data to be stored. They wanna make sure that they offer a level of service and scalability that can accommodate all the needs. So the first one is scalability. Then you have sustainability. Sustainability is connected to everything that is green and electricity, energy saving. That has been a very big topic at the European Commission for the past few years. So that makes the requirement number 2. And the other ones, I can't remember them by heart, but those are the main points that the Commission is looking for.
And tell us a little bit about Dyn's history and what made you enter into that space and be part of that challenge towards a more sustainable European blockchain and technical infrastructure.
Sure. First of all, Sebastian, thank you very much for making me CEO of Dyn. Actually, not only I'm not CEO, but there is no CEO at all, because Dyn is a non-profit foundation. So the closest we have to a CEO is Jarmil, my colleague, who is the secretary of the foundation. But anyway, Dyn exists as a non-profit foundation registered in the Netherlands since 2005. So we've been legally on for 16 years. But before that, Dyn existed as a community since 2000 or something. And I think one of the very first products that came out under the Dyn brand was Dynabolic. And that was the first Linux distribution that could boot from a CD. That was from 2001, I think. So very long time ago. The first stuff branded Dyn was out on the internet like 20 years ago. And we are a foundation and a community. So in all, we are about 15 people working in the foundation, and we have a network of a community network of about, I don't know, 150, 200 people doing all sorts of different things. We have our own Linux distribution called Dev1 that last week was rated as the second highest rated on DistroWatch, which we were quite proud about. Our main focus for the past 3-4 years has been cryptography. And the reason is that our founder, Jaromil, has been involved in development of Bitcoin since the very beginning. The reason was random meetings, because he happened to share flats at some point with a guy called Amir Taki. Some of you might have heard about him. He wrote the first the first Bitcoin exchange ever. I think it was called Pound Exchange or Brit Exchange. I can't remember. He wrote an exchange to swap British pounds for Bitcoin back in 2010 or something, 2011. Jaromil wrote, so Jaromil got interested in Bitcoin, I think in 2011. He committed through someone else a rather large piece of code into Bitcoin Core in 2012. Then, along with someone we've been working with for a long time, an Italian lady called Francesca Bria, they have been writing Horizon 2020 applications, some of them successfully. So we have been doing, I think, first a small Horizon 2020 research project called Common Fear, where we developed a back end to do Bitcoin transactions. Later on, we worked on Decent, and 2017, 2019, we worked on Decode, which is also an Horizon 2020 project, and it is one of the 2 Horizon 2020 projects about blockchain that got to the flagship status. And that opened us a lot of doors. So when we contacted the EBC, I think that must have been late 2019 or 2020, we introduced ourselves as the people that work on Decode, and they had heard about it. So this has worked as a very effective door opener for us. And right now we are working on mostly 2 Horizon 2020 projects. One is called Ledger, where we select and mentor startups that want to develop software in the cryptography and blockchain space. The other one is called Reflow, that is about circular economy, and we're collaborating with RIDDLE&CODE in a number of activities.
So one of the outcomes, or let's say side effects of the Decode project, was also, that Facebook, collaborated with parts of that initial team to develop their crypto proposition that we are still, somehow waiting for. And that has been attacked by various sides. So it shows that, European, not only technical development, but also the thinking around these types of technologies is seen by global players and adopted. And then, of course, you have developed meaningful technologies such as Zenroom. Can you maybe say a few words about, where does Zenroom and the other pieces of software that Dyn has released is playing a role in these markets and in the future?
Sure. About what you just quoted, what you just summarized with Facebook, basically what happened is that within the Decode project, One of the partners was the university, the UCL, University College of London, particularly a department of the Department of Mathematics with focus on cryptography. They have been a partner of the project from time zero. What they had to do was basically to develop a sharded blockchain, which never came to life, and to write a cryptography paper with the purpose of being able to do a bunch of different things. Zero knowledge proof. I'm not getting into that anyway. So this department, as around the end of 2018, so around the half of the project, they had written this paper. They had not done this blockchain. At the same time, they had founded a startup called, and what Facebook did in February 2019, so around a little bit after 2/3 of the completion of the project, is that they bought ChainSpace. And ChainSpace had been founded and bootstrapped, if you like, with money, with research money coming from the European Commission. And because of that, I believe the European Commission is investigating if there is a case of fraud or something like that. Anyway, what Facebook bought in reality, apart from the people that work in the startup, was the cryptographic paper that was developed by UCL within the code, which is called Coconuts. The paper was written mostly by Sonino, who is a cryptographer who started first at Leuven and then at UCL. And while this was happening, Jaromil, our founder, had the idea of creating a tool that would allow programmers or even non-programmers to do cryptography in a simple and fast way. So he first thought of doing a library, but then he thought he wanted to do a standalone virtual machine tool that would execute scripts written in a language that even non-programmers can understand, and programmers can write comfortably and quickly. And that's when Zenroom was born. So defining Zenroom is not an easy task because you will not find anything like that out in the market. Zenroom is a tool that you can use by command line, or you can use it as a library. It is written in C and Lua, can be programmed in a DSL, domain-specific language, that we developed ourselves based on BDD. BDD, I think it stands for Behavioral-Driven Development. It's a language that sounds like natural English. And inside Zenroom, we use a cryptography library that has built in the cryptography for 20-something curves. So we can do hashing, signing, encrypting for all the most famous cryptography curves. We can do SCCP 256K1. We can do BLS. So SCCP 256K1 is the curve used by both Bitcoin and Ethereum. We can do BLS 381, which is the curve used by Ethereum 2. We can do Edwards 25519, which is widely used as well.
Let's maybe summarize that. You know, we can do a lot of curves here, and marrying now Zenroom and the capability of the virtual machine with you know, what we do in the blockchain hardware space, and to basically create very light nodes that allow for more modular, decentralized, and more energy efficient infrastructure. That's at least our vision for EBC, and I'm pretty sure the other companies in that project, like IOTA or IOE42, they have their own approaches. But do you think that Europe is leading in terms of that? You know, underlying blockchain tech stack development, both aiming at the public sector, but also at empowering, our industrial markets and players to benefit from that? Or have you heard, anything like the EBC development from other areas of the world?
Do I think if Europe is leading, the sharp answer is no, unfortunately. What seems to be leading right now in terms of investments, branding, and presence is the Hyperledger Foundation, which is a sister foundation of the Linux Foundation. They have been very good in receiving as a donation software written by third parties. For example, Hyperledger Fabric that was originally written by IBM, or Hyperledger Soto that was developed by Intel, and a bunch of other technologies. What Europe for sure at the moment is leading on, and has been leading on for a long time, is cryptography. I don't know many of you has heard about post-quantum cryptography, but the NIST, the National Institute for Standards in the US, has started a competition a couple of years ago about an official post-quantum algorithm. And they came down to a list of 3. There are finalists, and the ones on top are developed mostly entirely in Europe, which are, I'm talking about the algorithms Dilithium 2 and Kuiper. They are the ones that we have built in Zenroom for EBC. The only thing, I can't really tell if there is anything else like EBC around. I doubt. I am not aware of any effort done by the American government to offer a state managed blockchain. If I think of what we are offering in our in the tender to EBC, to the Commission, so the solution we're offering, the closest things that come to mind are Polkadot and Cosmos Standard Mint, because we're offering a layered blockchain, so with a hierarchy of blockchains one on top of the other, which is the closest effort I can see out in the market is Polkadot.
Okay, then thanks a lot, Andrea. If you're interested in the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure Upgrade, maybe consult the European Commission's EBC websites. You will also find profiles there about all the architectural ideas that are currently investigated and in the race to upgrade that infrastructure. Let's keep our fingers crossed that Europe can make a big leap forward and also involve, not only the public institutions, but also the industry to benefit from that infrastructure. And with all of that, since Andrea, you said a few words about the capabilities that will be enabled, like scalability, etc., throughput, let me hand over to my colleague and our CEO, Alex Koppel, and he will talk with his very interesting panel about the use of applications and specialized companies in helping to grow the crypto economy globally. So thanks, Andrea, for your time, and over to you, Alex.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Good morning, everybody. Thanks, Andrea, for the interesting insights. It was really interesting to hear. Sebastian is thank you for the handover. It's great to have I think a very interesting panel today. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to hear from the ones who build the business, and this panel will be around building the businesses. So really happy to have Katerina with us, Dolph, and Jan. Jan, if you can also kindly switch on your camera. I don't see Jan yet, but I'm sure he will be with us soon. Katerina, I think you are at the forefront in building a business. I've been reading a lot about your activity, and I'd love to hear. Would like to open the panel with a very simple question to you. I mean, when I went to university, we talked a lot about supply side and demand side, right? So, and we heard from Sebastian about the ecosystem and different products and all these variables we need. Katerina, where are we? If we look at it from a very old school economic analysis, where are we at the moment in our cycle, and what are we creating together, and how do you think we can build a business in that phase of the cycle?
You said this is an easy one, Alex.
I lied, of course.
Actually, sometimes I almost think I'm bipolar, because I meet in one side of the bubble in the morning and then another side in the afternoon. And actually, if you'd ask me in the morning after a meeting, I tell you, oh, we're right in the middle and it's so exciting and everybody's on board. And just last afternoon, I had a meeting with the German bank CEO, and he literally said, blockchain, I know this is this weird thing with Bitcoin, but I mean, for us as a bank, it doesn't have any relevance. So this was the afternoon. In the morning, I was talking about a level 4 token, about what you can do with token and metadata and what type of analytics you could build and how that can actually create business opportunities you didn't even perceive as an opportunity yet. So I think we're clearly in a two-sided, two-path, two-speed economy. While we have a bubble, I think that's very advanced and recognizes the value. And on the other side, we still have a lot of education to do.
But quite frankly, I'm sorry, Katharina, if I said it was an easy one. But then I want to hear from you. Where are we in the cycle? I agree with you on the bipolar thing. You know, I have many examples. But where are we?
Okay, well, I think let's look to the edge of the development then, right? And let's look and recognize at the fact that when you think about a token, I think we can already agree on the fact that we recognized that with the scalability and with the ESG factor that I think we can almost tick the box on, we now have everything that we need for the token economy to even go in a broader adoption and also not face structural hurdles. I think those 2 points were always a key in the discussion, and they were kind of the dead end of any street. Now, when you then look back to the cycle, I think particularly in the whole supply chain, construction, and real estate, we see a defragmentation, not just of an ownership from one to many, but also rethink about what part of the value chain actually can be redesigned from scratch once that we've implemented smart tokens that understand how they can interact, but also that create yield pricing opportunities, for example, on the one side, optimized financing structures on the other, more usage or convenience or efficiency gains, you name it. So I think when you look at some of the projects we're doing, then I'm actually excited that clients start to understand that they start to understand it's not just tokenizing a full house and then doing everything in parallel. So I think from that end of the cycle, we are actually moving certainly into the right direction and starting to embrace all the opportunities a token can have.
Mm-hmm. Well, then thanks, Katharina. I'll have a comment to that later again, because I think that's one of the key questions. Dolph, you and Hive, you are in the midst of liquidity, and I think you are undergoing the hype now, or is that too much to say?
Yes, thank you for this. So it's for sure an exciting time to serve banks and offer digital currency trading to them, and see also the excitement that we feel on the banks that we talk to, and that's for sure sort of something that has changed. And I think the big paradigm shift is that the banks now have a custody solution available. And for the first time, they have the ability to store any kind of crypto assets and token for themselves and for their users. And that, I think, is sort of the paradigm shift that we're seeing, which will also then help enable the token economy going forward.
Okay, so you think that the banks are now building the infrastructure so that they can really enter the business?
Exactly, and that's sort of it's funny because we sometimes talk to banks who are sort of more driven by the tokenization approach, because they want to tokenize something, and other banks are really driven by this revenue opportunity of offering cryptocurrency trading. Mm-hmm. But both of them, build the infrastructure and the rails, and you can then push any kind of tokenized product over these rails once they're available for the banks and once the banks can use them.
I think, Katharina, please.
Sorry, I need to jump in there because it just also kicks back to both my meetings yesterday again. I think Dolph made a really important point that I still feel people see one slice of it and they don't see the whole opportunity. And then they think in terms of project budget and then they want to do one slice. And what I really try to encourage is to say, look, it's almost like if you build a road only 1 kilometer. If you think about networks and infrastructure, it doesn't necessarily yield anything if you just build one small slice. So to me, the key parameters, identity, payment, and asset, all these 3 things need to be thought about as a token, as a business opportunity, but 3 fundamental pillars. And if you're lacking one of them, whatever model you come up with is inferior to the solution you could provide. So I think that is really a key parameter. Stop thinking about it in terms of I just do this, and then somebody is more open in the business than somebody else, and then I do FX. The next one does I tokenize certificates. But that doesn't really, bring any substantial gains because it's an infrastructure. You need to think of it as a holistic concept. You need to think of where from end to end you can apply it. And also, obviously, we have a lot of the mechanisms, particularly in the established banks, that you want to defend your model. You can't admit you've been doing it all wrong for so long. And now somebody tells you, you need to go a different path and it's actually way more efficient. So the whole idea that only my IT infrastructure is the right one and I can't use somebody else's networks is also a very strong belief that I thought is ridiculous, given how bad the idea is. But I can always see the tenseness in the IT guys in the room when you talk about using a blockchain, maybe even a blockchain fork. And so for them, that's a big mind shift that they need to overcome.
I totally agree. I think there's a fantastic saying, and that comes to mind, at least for me, it's the pioneers who get the arrows, it's the farmers who get the land, and every now and then I ask myself, who are the pioneers and would get the arrows, and who are the farmers in this case? Jan, are you still with us? I think
he's coming. He's coming.
He's coming. Okay, good. He's coming. So we'll wait for Jan because I wanted to hear from Jan, who definitely has been a pioneer in the Swiss context, how he has been building the business. Dolph, what's the challenge then for you in this ecosystem, in this part, in this moment of the life cycle? How do you build the business? How do you go forward in creating the business?
So I think, one of the key challenges that we see is, and by talking to banks, is regulation for sure. And it's been the defining concept for a long time already. And now that banks are actively moving into the space, for them to have the regulatory clarity and certainty is the most important point, because outside, they're really not comfortable stepping outside of a framework, and that's why we also have seen certain countries that have regulatory clarity and have their banks move faster, and that's the core discussion that we have, and it's because it's the core discussion that we have with our customers, and to help them figure out a regulatory and the compliant solution for how they can get into the business. It's also one of the most defining questions for ourselves and for our business, and making sure that we have the fitting regulatory setup on our side to make sure that we can extend this level of comfort also to our customers.
So you're saying that also regulatory situations can become our chasm if you look at the cycles again?
It's a question. I think I think nowadays there's a lot of uncertainty, and it may be the case that you can get by with a inferior regulatory setup, but I think that is already has already started to change, and I think it will change further. And I think you only have a position in this business for the long term if you have the best regulatory firepower that you can bring to the table.
That's a great bridge to Jan. Welcome, Jan. It's great to have you on the panel. Full disclosure, Dolph, Jan, and I have been sitting on a panel in Amsterdam, I think a couple of weeks ago. It was quite interesting because I think the bottom line then is we couldn't agree, but we all agreed that we said, let's collaborate more in the industry. So, great to have you with us today.
Thanks very much.
Switzerland, the safe haven of stable regulation, ? Is that true, so?
Yeah, I think so. Switzerland was quite at the forefront to put in rules and regulations on the crypto side, and they were not fast. They're going very slowly, and to really think through everything and what potential impact it has on other laws. But I think it gives investors, it gives crypto companies as well a lot of security, a lot of clarity what they can do. And yeah, they cannot do it tomorrow. They need time, but when they have it, they can rely on that, and the regulators not jumping from this side to this side and change the requirements all the time.
So, since our panel is also about building the business, you felt quite, supported in a stable environment, at least from a regulatory perspective, I understand. So if you look at building the business, I mean, we heard Katrina, earlier saying, it's almost a bipolar feeling, which I totally subscribe to, honestly. What's the sentiment in Switzerland, in building the business in this industry?
I think it really depends on the business you want to build. But in the financial industry, if you want to do crypto funds, crypto trading, crypto tokenization of financial instruments, I think Switzerland is really, really a good place because of the regulatory clarity, but because as well you have the financial industry there where you can collaborate, where you can work together, where you can run projects with them. So you have the ecosystem. You probably heard about Crypto Valley. Was a marketing gag at the beginning, but now it really starts to become a real valley or region with a lot of crypto companies, a lot of traditional players. Banks are moving their innovation centers to Zurich to work on blockchain tokenization and digital assets. So I think it's a really good. I'm absolutely sure it's probably one of the best and most safest locations you can start your business. The prices are high, but on the other hand, you have kind of a regulatory clarity and.
So, if we now, as a group, look at the trends, in our regions, I mean, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, what are the meta trends you identify, especially for you in building and growing the businesses in the next? Let's not assume too much of time, but for the next 12 months, what are the major trends which you see coming, Katrina?
For us, certainly one of the big leitmotifs are the ESG topics. So the whole idea of measuring CO2 emissions in real time of our products, the whole idea of explaining that proof-of-stake blockchains can be a very energy-efficient alternative to what people know from the newspapers about Bitcoin, but particularly also showing how if you apply it as an industry standard, everybody who participates can have those efficiency gains on the one side and the CO2 emission reductions on the other side. So I think those are the one big leitmotifs. But on the other side, we clearly see the idea that more and more industry players, and that is not financial industry, but actually machinery, real estate, these type of players, they start to recognize that with the new laws coming about, so Lieferkettengesetz, supply chain, here the digital product pass for power batteries, those are things, if you start doing those with paper, you're doomed to fail before you even started. So I think technology here can be a great lever, and it's something where you don't need to compete against incumbents because those are new laws, these are new processes to be designed. So I think that's the second strong angle for us in the industrial part.
Mm-hmm. Dolph, where do you see the trends going?
Yeah, I think the key trend will be that access to financial markets and access to products will become even more widespread, and there will be further democratization of this access. And the way we see this shape up is that that many of the established players and neo brokers, banks, everywhere, sort of where you can buy stocks, bonds, everything else, or gold, will also be offering crypto products, and that initially it's going to be cryptocurrencies, but then also will be security tokens. And I think that will be that's really the fundamental change that we're going to see in the next 2-3 years.
Thanks.
So really that you can sort of, it's before, as a consumer, you had to then choose, do I like open an account with a crypto exchange or a crypto platform? So I need to just sort of do my own KYC process, log on, go to a specific service. And I think that will change. There will not be like crypto only companies or banks where you cannot, buy crypto assets, but there will be a confluence and both sides will move into each other's others products that they were offering before.
That's very interesting. Let me ask you one more question on this one. So for your company then, what does it mean? Will you operate a standalone business? Will you go sort of in the industrial strategic environment? How do you grow the business within that trend?
Yes, so we're fundamentally about enabling financial institutions to offer digital currency trading, and that's what we do, and that's sort of the initial phase in all of the discussions that we're having with our current customers and future customers, and help them sort of being able to offer products around digital currencies to their customers. Sort of many of the financial institutions that we're playing, they see that there is like a lot of new entrants. They're taking away their market share. Sort of US platforms, traditionally crypto players who just venture into their customer base and take the customers, and they know that they have to step up their game and also offer products to make sure that they can keep those customers and also offer better service. And if you if you look at this, most customers still have a lot of money and funds and assets with their banks. And they trust their banks. There's this funny saying: banks may not be liked, but they're trusted. And there is still a huge opportunity out there for these banks to then also offer more and more advanced products and then also regain some of this market share that they have lost. And that's sort of everything that we do is sort of helping banks, move into this new space. And especially since they now add these custody solutions for this that I mentioned already earlier. We now have a complete new world where banks have sort of two types of infrastructures. Number one is the current or the existing infrastructure of settlement processes in traditional financial instruments. And they have this new settlement infrastructure and new trading infrastructure on the digital asset side. And then in the future, I think there will be a healthy competition. Do we launch a new financial product, in the traditional world, or do we launch it on the new blockchain rails? And I think it's going to be a very exciting world that will also be great for consumers, because you will have, for the first time, really the potential for major cost reduction and more efficiency and really a better financial system coming out of this.
I think it's if I look at my other two panelists and their background, it was quite interesting. When I listened to you, Dolph, I realized, okay, those two, they have their services as an ad in their background, which I love. Isn't that interesting? Jan, what are you? Are you trying to provide services? Is it more efficient to provide services to banks? Or is it you become a player yourself and you just outrun them? What are we? What are we doing?
No, I just had very much to laugh, because I don't know where Dolph had this script from, but it could have been one of my some of my past speeches I was having. So I completely agree with it. We do exactly that for 4 years, and we see that all the traditional players need to get in, and they cannot do it themselves. It's way too difficult. It needs completely new infrastructure and new skill sets, which they don't have currently. So for them, it's they need a partner to do that. So that's why we see as well this tremendous growth on the request side. And then I think you need to differentiate between the end client, the retail client, and the institutional clients. So right now, retail clients, they will have more and more products they can buy. They can buy the ETPs, they can buy certificates, but there are more and more really convenient apps where you can just buy Bitcoin on a regular basis, just stacking sats on a weekly or monthly basis. And that enables this access to this new asset class and will bring in a tremendous amount of new potential investors. And unfortunately, most of them will do it directly because the banks were missing the trend. Now they are under pressure because they realized that they lose the client access at least on this side. And so they're really in a hurry, the institutional side, to put that up and have a service of products up and running. But I think it's a matter of time, and we need to be ready on the institutional infrastructure side, on the crypto side, to really handle that. We're always talking about institutional adoption. I think from a technology layer, it can be the blockchains, the different blockchains, and we talk about not about Bitcoin. That works quite well, but in upcoming blockchains like IOTA, Solana, and Tezos, and the others, which sometimes they're claiming that they're distributed, but then they are just down for a day, which is kind of a problem. So if you really want to offer professional services, institutional level services to the clients, we really need to step up the game and come to another level.
Mm-hmm. Katrina, you said earlier that you believe that there's a new asset class which is just about to be tapped into, if I may summarize it that way. And full disclosure, I mean, we at RIDDLE&CODE, we are in the midst of this, and we're trying really to tap into that. Now, listening to Dolph and to Jan about their positions with the established players, I have a maybe a naive question, yeah? And that's around, the banks themselves. I mean, I've just been following N26 very closely because, it's a bunch of Austrians. They got 900 million, right? It's like Bitpanda. They got 300 million. Are we from the outside? I mean, are we not seeing a falling knife, especially in the entire industry, in the banking, financial industry? They're losing the clients in masses. So who are we building the products for, and who's the ultimate buyer? And if we go 2 or 3 years down the road, who will be the investors? Will we connect the younger generation with new products? Bottom line question. What do you think?
Well, I think for a question like that, it always helps to look across the pond. So earlier this week, I discussed with Kirim from Investor, and his target group is 0 to 18. Mm-hmm. And his main demographic is actually 15 and a half. That's his main client. So he targets them with financial education really early. He now just adds slowly additional products, but it's all fully gamified. It doesn't look at all like what we would know as asset management or capital allocation or investing per se. It's a game. It's fun. It's a cool UX. So I think that we're really in Europe. I mean, it's nice what Bitpanda is doing, and it's not bad what N26 is doing, but I certainly wouldn't say that this is already the end of the stick. And I think there's so much more that you can be doing, particularly on the side. Why would it need to be boring? Why would it need to be complicated? I think the old saying, when it's easy, then you really have understood it, applies here the most. So I think we're really only starting at this journey. And I think there's a value in aiming higher. And I think, that's also why I'm so excited about it. I think the token economy offers so much. It can eradicate legacy structures. It can open up new opportunities. A token can do so much more than paper could or a normal bank account could. So I think that's really what inspires me, what intrigues me, what excites me, because I want to build that. I want to build the new better and not just a digital version of the past that's a little bit more efficient. So I think when you look at banks, people working there, they're used to decades of cost cutting. They've neither wanted to be creative, nor were they allowed to be. And I think it's really just the end of a long cycle that will certainly continue in its downward trend more and more.
But that speaks for the theory that we will see us, or the ecosystem, more moving from services to established in new players. We will see a new breed of players which will be fueled by technology and regulatory compliance. Is that fair to say? And create new products which haven't been around?
Absolutely. It's like the Amazon started it, and then you had the whole Tesla thing. I think we've learned more and more that established brands are only established as long as they're not dead. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. And yes, we're a regulated industry, but so is health. supply chain. And I think it just, speaks to the boring mind that you accept the regulatory framework as something so limiting that you wouldn't dare to think anew. I mean, that's a disaster. And the regulator wasn't there to mandate you how to do your business, but you should find a way to do your business within the regulatory framework. And I think, of course, within the token ecosystem, we need to make sure that politicians and policymakers and regulators understand the opportunity as well. I think that's something that we also fight for. But in the end, that's the key, question for our generation to increase productivity and to ensure competitiveness here. And I think it's so much more than just building our own business. It's really about making sure that the potential of blockchain and token economy is recognized by across the industry, and to make sure that we can adopt and win here as a whole economy.
Yes, I mean, Katharina, I think that's like a super good point. And funny enough, I think it's actually not so hard to imagine a completely tokenized economy and how it would work. And I think what the struggle, or what's difficult about it is the path on how to get there, because you need to sort of in order to actually arrive at the target picture, you need to also have intermediate states that sort of make sense and that already provide a little bit of value before you have everything built out. And like the Amazon example, one more thing, like the Amazon example that you said, like if you have now if you're like a seller of a product, you can list it on the Amazon marketplace and you actually get to distribute it everywhere. But if you now are a token creator and you have sort of either a security token that is regulated or like sort of a non-security token, it's actually it's hard to get that done if you don't have the full distribution, if you can't market it everywhere, if there's regulatory questions around it. So I think you need to have intermediate steps as well that then make it easy to build out the entire infrastructure until we see all of the final version with the whole tokenized economy that I think is easier to envision than the path on the way.
And especially as soon as there is DeFi, then anyway, borders don't matter anymore. You can log in via VPN into the US system, etc. So this is going to be, from a regulatory perspective, it's going to be a massive nightmare. And I'm sure they will not be able to do that. They just have to give up and change the rules, or have international rules which apply to the whole world.
I mean, yeah, Jan, you're in the midst of the business in Switzerland now with the new heights. What do you think will it do to your business? From both sides, regulatory and also, will it bring new business and regulatory pressure at the same time? So the evil twins?
No, I don't think we see regulatory pressure on our side, because we are way too over-regulated already and under massive constraints there. I would love to be not regulated, because we would be much faster. We could serve our clients much better if we wouldn't be regulated. This is a massive kind of keeps us slow, and we can't move on. But on the other side, yeah.
That was a funny moment. I just need to share that with the audience. When we were in Amsterdam, and Michael, the CEO of Fireblocks, we asked him the question, will you be regulated? And he just went pale, and he said, no, never. And I think we in Europe, we honestly, we suffer from the unregulated competition, which is just, getting into the market in a different way. Sorry for interrupting, but I thought that was worth mentioning, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly a very good example. I mean, Fireblocks is doing custody. They're selling the infrastructure, and it's in the end the clients are the custodians, but this doesn't really apply there. And we have to do the same for you as well, right? If we are selling the infrastructure, we still have, if they are not regulated, that we have to fulfill certain KYC AML requirements. Others do not. So we have these challenges, but on the other side, I mean, now with the new highs, etc., you really have, as Dolph before said, you have this traditional investors coming in, and I'm just here at the conference in Monaco right now. This is really a big thing, and everyone is talking about it.
Good. Then, Dolph, what do you think for you? The new heights, the new business, banks will wake up and call you?
It always helps, it always helps. So that's, but to me, sort of price is not, the core driver. I really think that, that digital currency trading is one of the most important milestones on the way to the tokenized economy. And that's why it's exciting, because for me, it's like the door opener for banks to have custody. And that's the door opener to have also a separate infrastructure next to the existing infrastructure. Because if you talk to a bank, everything works for them, kind of. They don't need to have a new settlement infrastructure. And this digital currency trading makes them move because they want to get into this business, and it helps create the additional infrastructure, which, at the beginning doesn't save anything for them. It actually costs more money. But then it also, once it's there and once you can use it, once the road is built, you can drive on it. And I think that's then really when we see the core effects from the tokenized economy, and also sort of the cost pressure on the existing financial infrastructure and the settlement infrastructure. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too. I think, we will get a lot of requests. Katrina, what do you think? Will it help us to build the new products, which we've been talking about for so long? Because, the currencies are going up like crazy.
It helps for media attention, but it also doesn't help sometimes because people then think, oh, Bitcoin is everything, and they don't recognize the value of the technology and token economy. And then Bitcoin crashes in 3 weeks again, and then everything is doomed to fail, and it was just a hoax and nobody really believed in it. So I think it's too easy sometimes for media to produce nice headlines with the Bitcoin movements. But overall, of course, it helps. But still, I would always, argue and fight for the whole token economy potential, because I think in the end, we're in the first steps. Those are exciting, but there's a long way ahead. There's a marathon ahead. And I think that's where it matters in the long run.
That's very true. Interesting observation, in my sort of non-industrial social community. I think NFT has helped a lot more than cryptocurrencies, interestingly enough. People are going crazy about NFTs and understand the concept of blockchain. But Katrina, you also mentioned ESG, right? The entire industrial movement here. And I love the Silke, which I've come across as term, the sichere Lieferkette and product passes and all of this. If we combine this with what we see happening now, and if you look at immutable insights, what all of this, what we are seeing as drivers and identifying, what are the objectives for you and for your, maybe as a last round, what are the short-term objectives for you guys until the end of the year, so you really build the business to the next layer?
Wow, if I can manage to build a business to the next layer by the end of the year, I'm actually got to hurry up. No, I think for us, it's just continuing our everyday journey, really. I think for us in an industry that's so dynamic, it's to keep the focus, to improve every day, to make sure everything works. I think we would all agree operations is still not easy, and it's still a lot of things you need to manage on a daily basis. So to me, I'm not as much as a long-term plan. I think we have a clear vision, and for that we need to just execute and be good every day and be better tomorrow. And then, so that's how we take it step by step.
Step by step. Is it difficult for you to identify skill and talent and to hire?
Well, I think actually one of the big advantages, I know that people keep saying that, I think we're somewhat, maybe it's the attention, I don't know, but we still get a lot of unsolicited applications also. I mean, we've hired 26 people this year. We've had a great selection to choose from. Maybe it's also Munich as a point, but anywhere from Allianz Global Investors, Munich Re, UBS, Apple, we've had a lot of applications. We still get them. And I think for us, it's been a great journey also for embracing talent that clearly would have had still old career type options, but they'd make a deliberate decision to take a new challenge and to change horses, so to speak. So I think the trend from dinosaurs to unicorns is certainly something that we see every day. And I think it's been one of our big advantages that we've had an opportunity to hire well.
Thanks, Katrina. We have a question here, and the question is: do European companies have a disadvantage versus their competitors in US Southeast Asia because of regulations. Maybe something you want to add on to this? Jan, you're nodding.
Yeah, I can say some words. I mean, in the US, you have only very limited regulations right now, and there's a rather big mess with between the SEC and the CFTC. So you can do a lot of things there, but the uncertainty, the risk, the tail risk is massive. That at a certain point in time in the future, they will decide on a regulation, and then many of the businesses have to shut down, like this whole lending, borrowing platforms which are not regulated. It's a credit business, so I think they have big risks. In Asia, certain countries, yes, definitely, there's not a real regulation there. Then you can do what you want. But for example, Singapore with the PSA license, Payment Service Act license, this is a big challenge. It's not easy to get it. If you were there before, then you could go into the grandfathering. But now there are over 140 applications in process, and I think still only 2 have received it, and one of it is DBS. It's one of the full banks in Singapore, right? So this is going very slowly, and it's not easy to launch crypto businesses out of Singapore. But I think as soon as you have it, it's a quality stamp which brings you at the forefront in terms of regulation and then with clients.
Sebastian has now switched on his camera, so I know I need to hurry up because he will end the panel in a moment. But there's a couple of questions I have to ask you. You have been nodding, Jan, when I talked about talent. What's your feeling around talent? I think it's one of the most essential parts of building a business is actually attracting the talent. So I'm happy for Katrina to hear that she gets a lot of unsolicited, fantastic CVs. I can only say for us, it's very difficult actually to identify talent. How about you?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I agree with Katrina as well. We receive a lot of unsolicited applications for all the posts we have, the job offerings we have open. We get so many applications, but for us really to find high quality, I mean, we cannot just hire everyone. For me, it's very important to have that they have the experience from the traditional world and then the crypto part. And, bringing both of it to the table is very rare. You have traditional asset managers or traders who were very good in traditional space but have no clue about crypto, and vice versa, which is for me, then it's just 50%, right? To really get this 100% is very difficult.
Will that change for you now that you have a new partner on board, which obviously, I'm trying to avoid the word stability, but it has a different impact, in your overall go-to-market. What do you think? Is that partnership?
I think, on the client side, definitely it removes a lot of counterparty risk for our clients when they do business with us, because it's Deutsche Börse Group is a big name, and a lot of banks are anyway working in one or the other way with them. But on the recruiting side, I'm not sure. I think it's just there are not that many people from the traditional space and who have a deep understanding of crypto and blockchain and technology. And there are so many companies in Europe and especially in Switzerland now, we're all hunting for the same talent. So there are educations now at universities, etc., where you learn about it, and there are very good advanced later stage courses where you can learn about the technology. But for me, it's really, if I interview someone, I always ask, like, okay, do you have crypto? Do you have a wallet? And when they tell me, I bought a certificate or something, then it's, this is not really crypto. I want to have people who are curious about and have downloaded a mobile wallet or have a hardware wallet, etc. Then they really understand it, or at least, the basic level.
Next step for you, the last question, next step for you, Jan, the next 3 months, 4 months, focus?
It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So just continuing as we did last 4.5 years, together with the new partner, with Deutsche Börse Group as the majority shareholder, and then expanding into Europe is a very high priority for us. And just looking forward to partner up and expand the services and products and expand the team, doubling the team again next year.
Dolph, with the new heights, for you, that is managing growth.
It is.
Right?
It is, and it's no, it's for sure exciting times, and yes, I mean we obviously want to continue serve our existing clients well, and sort of just working on the pipeline of the new customers that want to work with us, that we're very excited about. And then we have a couple of bold moves still left that we can't yet announce, but hopefully we will be in a couple of months. So yeah, looking forward to them be able to share this at some point.
Excellent. Wish you the very best. I would like to thank the panelists. I think it was an exciting...
How's about you, Alex? I don't know if you said what your plans are.
I think...
quite busy as well.
I think, quite frankly, if I look at the cycle, my first question, I think we are, for Riddle&Code, we are seeing that we are at the beginning of something I would think is the most exciting cycle for us, right? We've been in the business in fintech and materials and energy, and I totally agree with Katrina. I think that these new products finally they will come to market, and I think that on the there's not only supply side now, there's demand side. Yeah, I personally believe that you remember the question in Amsterdam. Is it the tech players becoming banks or the banks becoming tech players? I think. The chances are very little that banks will become the tech players, and I think that they will look for service providers which will enable them to bring new products. Hence, totally agree again with Katrina. I also agree with you and with Dolph that there is this managing growth and finding the right skill set, and I also believe in regulation. Jan, I think we also discussed that in Amsterdam. All of this will facilitate and will basically give it a boost. I think the big question, to be honest with you, is how will the establishment and the regulation and the industrial landscape react to these new heights? I'm not sure. I think there is. If you look at the potential of a company like N26 and that they got 900 million and they agreed with the European Union not to grow over certain numbers per month, that tells you what the disruption potentials are at the moment in this industry. So a lot of forces will try to protect it. But for us, I think it's very, very exciting, and we're really well prepared, and we're looking for talent. So, we're more than happy. So thank you very much. I hand over to Sebastian, who has taken off his glasses. That means he's serious now. Sebastian, I'm sorry to have been taking too much time.
Yeah, it's a volatile industry. The Bitcoin prices keep moving mostly up and sometimes a little bit down. Some things are never changing. Jan said it, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. B, Alex likes to talk and we can never end a meeting on time. But that's maybe also something we have to learn for the next cycle. So it's very exciting to hear, that we have people that are really driven, that have goals and ambitions like Katharina, Dolph, Jan, and also Alex, of course. We hope that we could, give you an impulse today and give you a good overview of where the market is and where it is heading and where some of the most interesting players are working towards. And with that, looking forward to the next webinar. Maybe we can squeeze something in before Christmas. Maybe it's the new year. Victoria, we will discuss that. And with that, thank you to everybody. And also, I hope that the on-demand viewers will have fun watching this panel. And over to you, Victoria. Goodbye. See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks, everyone.
And also to the audience for the great questions. And to my friends from Riddle&Code, very happy to work with you again, and probably also going to work with you in our next flagship event in December, our European Blockchain Convention. And just a little note on education. Yeah, we can clearly see that from the European Blockchain Convention that there is a huge gap when it comes to talent. That's also why we launched our school, European Tech School, Blockchain School, recently. So you're welcome to reach out there. But again, thank you so much, Sebastian, Alex. Great to work with you again. And to the audience, if you want to know more about Riddle&Code, reach out to them via LinkedIn or via their website or Twitter. And again, to the audience, thank you for your questions. This was all thanks to you. So have a lovely day and see you soon. Bye-bye.